A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 35.
Welcome to a Swift Kick in the Ass podcast, hosted by lifelong friends Tom Stewart and John Curren. Today's episode is a special feature covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren. And today we talk once more about Robert Greene's best-selling book, The 48 Laws of Power. And today we've done 21 episodes so far, 21 laws. And what we're going to do is talk about the most popular that we've had based on our feedback and downloads. So in a list, these are the top 5, if you would, the most popular. Okay. All right. Law number 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Law number 1. Never outshine the master. Law number 4. Always say less than necessary. Law number 3. Conceal your intentions. And law 15. Crush your enemy totally.
Well, Tom, I don't live up to the law about only saying things that are necessary. I seem to always blab on and on. So I guess it's appropriate that we've changed our platform that we've been doing for our podcast, and we're now using Blab, which is a great technology, I think. And what it's going to do is it's really going to enable us to gather an audience and get the audience to participate and become part of the conversation, because let's just face it, Tom, we're here for them as much as for ourselves, and we're on this quest and this journey to better ourselves, and I think it's great to invite people along for the ride.
Absolutely, and what John is referring to is we normally use Google Hangouts to record our podcast, since I'm located in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale and John's up in Virginia. Blab is new on the scene, and it seems to allow us to do some more flexibility, or we can allow chat, and if we wanted to, we could bring someone else into the conversation. So, John, starting with what I saw, there's a common denominator here between 3 of these laws at least, and I've talked to you a little bit about it. And I think what it is friendship. Or the
I would agree with that. I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Or the fact that someone has been burned in friendships or relationships, maybe be more accurate, not necessarily always friendships.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think this goes beyond friendship, and in my world, the way I view friendship and love is it has some very common parts. If you trying to define what a friend is and what a lover is, with a lover, there's a physical, there could be a physical component there, which we'll never have, Tom, and that's okay.
So you had to break it to me here in front of everyone.
You're cutting out on me, but love and friendship have some have some common things that they share, and I think if you look at I guess I lost Tom. Well, I'm going to keep on talking. If you look at friendship and love, and look at the popular laws of power that within our podcasts, you'll see that people are. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've continued listening to you, so that's okay.
Okay, it threw me off. It really did throw me off, because I thought it was
the thing that we'll never be lovers. So I thought that I said something. You just sat there like a deer staring into headlights, and I was like, "Hello,
Yeah, it's brotherly love between us.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I think that these top five really signify. Sorry, I'm tongue tied. How right Greene is. That this world has not changed all that much, and we still operate very much like the old aristocratic court, where groups of people really form around people of power, and that's sounds like it's not directly related to friendship and to love, but when you have a king or a queen, people flock towards that power, and members of the court always, they pledge
Loyalty,
their support and love to the king or queen. And also they're looking for favors from that relationship. And I just wonder, if you look at these highly popular topics in our podcast dealing with the laws of power, whether I'm interested to think about how people, how our listeners view friendship, and it's it may be different than the way I view it, but I think that friendship is not necessarily based on favors, and it's determined over a long period of time, and it's a true friend will see you through thick and thin, and it doesn't really they're always there for you, and I think few of us have those kind of relationships in our life. I think a lot of people search.
And you know what true friends do? They admit their mistakes. And what might have thrown you when I first opened up this show is I read the wrong list. I read the wrong top 5 list. After tabulating all the calculations, and we talked earlier, the real list, and it changes just slightly. The first one was never put too much trust in friends. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. That was one that we missed out. Infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky, right? That has to do with friends. And then it's back to never outshine the master and crush your enemy totally. So that might have thrown you a little bit when, so that to the listeners as well, sorry, but that's why we're talking about friends, because 3 of the laws, never put too much trust in friends, pose as a friend, work as a spy, and infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky, have to do with relationships and friendship.
Yes, and what's interesting is that in Robert Greene himself talks a bit about friendship, and talks about friendship from an exchange of favors or trading of favors, and like you said, posing as a friend, working as a spy, it does make you think a lot about your friends. And I have a person in my life that used to be a very good friend for over 25 years, and there were some things I knew about her, but it really didn't matter. But then one day, I won't get into the gory details, but one day the light bulb went off in my head that she really was not the friend that I thought she was. It was more of a one-sided relationship, and we always did things on her terms. And I think friendship is a two-way street. But as I said, in the laws of power, Robert Greene mentions the way he discusses friendship, it is more of trading favors, and when you're trying to look at power and seeking power, I imagine that's very true. It is based on favors, and
we see this a lot. I mean, in everyday life, even if you ever go to a networking event and pose as a friend, work as a spy, that happens quite a bit. Not so much maybe as they're working as a spy, but they're trying to pretend you're a friend in order to gain favor or to gain something from you, rather than just being an honest friend and being there whether the good and the bad.
Yeah, going back to my definition of what a friend is, some of my best friends, and you included in this, have called me out when I was maybe going astray or doing something wrong, or making a big mistake. You have the guts to tell a friend, hey, you know what? I just tell them the truth. And I've had that happen to me several times in my life where I was being a jerk, and my friends called me out on it, and I started going down a path that the people who really knew me and loved me and cared for me knew that wasn't really who I was. And they said, you know what, you better look at what you're doing and think about this path that you're heading down, because we don't think that you really want to go there. And, it might, when someone tells you something like that, it does take you kind of aback. Hearing that is difficult, I think, for anyone. And it certainly was for me.
Well, how do you feel about Law 10, which is infection, avoid the unhappy and the unlucky? How does that play into as far as friends that you might have had in the past?
Well, I think that life is full of up and downs, and life is not always going to be good. It's not always going to be bad, but there are people out there who tend to lean towards one way or the other. And I think that we build our own luck, and we create our own luck. So someone could be unlucky, truly unlucky, but most of the time, if you really drill down into their problems, their luck is caused by their actions in one way or another. That's not always the case, but in a lot. So
right, the law doesn't mean do not help someone in need. It means do not help someone that is constantly in need. We all have had those friends that they're always constantly down or complaining. At work, man, you get these people that will just complain and complain and complain. My wife today was saying she went to a department store, and she was afraid to go into the fitting room because she heard the woman complaining to her coworker, oh, these people leave clothes all around. We leave this and that and this. And those kind of people are toxic, especially to an organization. It just, it rips them apart. And my wife, she got home, she goes, I want to call the company and complain because, I felt uncomfortable as a customer. Like and when she went into the dressing room, then the lady was like, very rude to her and, make sure you bring those back and hang them up. And my wife's not going to leave them all scattered all over the floor, but, Yeah, that I think is just the way that people view life. I mean, some people view life in a very negative way. Other people look at it more, in a more positive light. You're an optimist or a pessimist, or, we could talk about wish fulfillment and how that relates to, our minds and the way we think things are. That helps us, the way we think about things forms our own perception of ourselves and the world and how we react to the world. So I think that's what Robert Greene is saying. He's saying is that the people who think, negative thoughts, if the majority of what they think or the way they view the world is negative or it's toxic, I mean, you need to stay away from them. And I had a good friend, a guy by the name of Chris that I went to high school with. And then in college, we, just kind of ran into each other just by luck. And we were buddies and, hung out a lot and got into a lot of trouble. And then when I moved to Atlanta, our paths crossed again. I mean, we had lost touch, but, we kind of fate brought us back together. And those were some very good times, but he was a really bad influence on me. And in fact, I ended up quitting a really good job that I had to try to go into business with him and another guy. And that basically destroyed the friendships and amounted to about 9 months of mountain biking, which was great. And I had a great time. But
and it gave me some perspective I guess I didn't have before. But those were tough times, and some of the toughest times of my life.
All right.
So
what if we
it's
bounce
good to
back?
let him go. I mean, in the end, that's the point I was actually trying to get to in a long way.
Right. If they're toxic, if it's a toxic friend or relationship, you got to let it go. It will pull you down, and it could be a family member. We've all experienced that in our own families. At least I know I have, where you have someone that, no matter how much you try to help them, they don't bounce back. And after a while, you just got to say, hey, you got to hit bottom before you come back up.
Yeah, and a good friend is going to recognize that and help you and help. You're going to have to do the work yourself, but they'll be there to help you. A true friend will do that, and we're certainly not saying don't help out your friends or people that you care about. We're talking about those people who are not only going through a bad time, a bad period, but it seems like everything in their life is negative and they're not doing anything about it. You can't change people.
All right,
so you need to let them go.
So that was recapping Law 10, infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. We bounce back to Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. How do you feel about that, buddy?
Yeah, well, we've been friends since we were 4 and 5, I think.
Yep.
It's been a really long time, over 40 years. But we've also been enemies along the way too. We've had our fair share of fights.
Oh, yeah.
And our show, A Swift Kick in the Ass, is really based on that relationship and how we have kicked each other in the ass from to get each other on a good path. And I think that's part of it. But we've also kicked each other's ass, along the way. We've fought. I wouldn't, try to do that now, considering all the years or decades of martial arts that you've done. I'm not going to mess with you and your jujitsu. But I think we've grown up and matured, and we have that level of friendship. But trusting your friends, they are people who know you are in the best place to hurt you.
Exactly.
And therefore, you have to be careful with that. And I think that what that does is, I think one of the reasons why these episodes are so popular is because so many people have been burned by a friend, by a spouse or a lover or a boyfriend or girlfriend, whoever, someone you've had a deep relationship with. So that creates anger, it creates hatred, and a number of very negative feelings.
Yeah, that's that whole fine line between love and hate, that deals with relationships or divorce, how they can get so ugly and so nasty.
Right. And what, Robert Greene, there's so great quotes in this book, throughout the book, but he says an emotional response is the single greatest barrier to power, and that it can cost you much more than whatever you feel you can gain by expressing that feeling. I think I just messed that up. I was paraphrasing it. But
I mean, almost every law that is in his book has to do with self-control and calculation. You have to be very calculating, but you also have to be very patient and self-controlled.
Yes, absolutely. And what he said is that, and this is true, emotions cloud your reason. So, and they loosen your grip on control. So if you're taking action based on emotion, you're gonna lose control. And I guess what I was trying to say before is that sometimes we could speak first, without really thinking about it, and that can cost you in many, many ways. I mean, we could speak, maybe we could even get physical about it. Say someone says something and you lash out and hit them. I mean, there's That is going to cause you a lot of problems if you're taking action just out of pure emotion. And what Greene is saying you're best off to control that emotion, and use it to your advantage. Don't try to suppress it. Acknowledge what you're feeling, because you're feeling a certain way because of whatever's going on, because of the circumstance.
Now, Greene also talks about becoming friends with your enemies, right? In order to learn about them and keep them, the old saying, keep your enemies or your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah, that is true. And why does he say that?
Well, you can keep an eye on them. Plus, they're usually more honest with you than your friends are, because they have they don't care about your feelings. They don't care about protecting you. So sometimes what you'll hear from them is actual true criticism, constructive criticism.
Well, that is true. And what they're trying to do, if you've ever broken anybody's trust before, you recognize that it's trust is easily given, but once it's lost, it's very hard to get back. So when you don't trust someone, and I feel that all relationships are based on trust. If you look at the way, you and I have known each other for a long period of time, I don't even want to think about the 40 odd years that we've known each other. I feel old when I say that, but we have a high level of trust, and I know that whatever I tell you, I can say it easily to you. I don't have to think a lot about what I'm saying, because I know you're going to interpret it.
And then I throw it on Facebook.
Yeah, that's another story. but think about, and that's a limit to our trust. I know you're going to throw it on Facebook if I say too much. So I hold back a little bit. But think about the people that you don't trust at all, and don't get along with. Think about all the energy you spend communicating with that person. It's not as easy as a trusted friend. And why is that? It's because you're not only second guessing what you're saying, but you're second guessing what they're saying as well. And you're trying to, connect the dots, and you're spending a lot of energy trying to figure out what this other person is either up to, or what they're really saying, or, it's all trust is the basis of all communication, I think. The better you
Imagine when you go on to a dinner party function at work, right? As compared to hanging out with your family and having a dinner party. Like last night, we had my mother-in-law's birthday, and I have all my family and friends around, and like you said, I can let my hair down, which I don't have any hair, but you're totally relaxed. You don't have to worry about some secret agenda. But if you go to a party with the same amount of people, with people from work, you're on guard, you're watching what you say, it's very different. And like you said, it's stressful. By the end of the night, man, you're done, you're tired.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. But the way I think that emotions are a tool, and we all have them, and some of us understand our emotions more than others. And I think this is a lifelong pursuit. I tell this to my kids all the time, that part of I have a 13-year-old daughter, and she is very moody at times, and a lot of it is that she's trying to understand her own feelings. And I think that we fight and we struggle with that throughout our lives. And the better you know yourself, the better you can control your own emotions and understand them, and therefore better control your actions.
Absolutely. Okay, how about if we move on to law number 1, never outshine the master.
Yes.
Now, this is not to do with relationships and friends. This is more probably coworkers, bosses.
Well, you know what though, it could, Tom, because it depends on how you view friendship. If you're viewing friendship from the perspective that you're trading favors, and you're expecting to give, to give and receive from someone else, it could be that person could be the master of you. I mean, it can apply in other situations as well. I mean, let's face it, if you work for anybody, which most of us do, I mean, even if you work for yourself, like Bob Dylan said, we all have to serve somebody. And there's going to be someone else who has more power than you. And you never want to outshine them, meaning you never want to say something that will put you in a bad position or a bad light with them, because that could mess up what you're trying to do. And if you're trying to seek power and gain power, you don't want to mess up somebody that, mess with someone that can take that away from you.
Well, think about it when you were probably around 12, right? I have a 12-year-old son now, and that's a time that they start testing that limit with their fathers, or their mothers.
Oh yeah.
And they start stepping up and making the parents seem stupid, right? Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, or if you talk about, I was talking about Blab to my son, and he was kids aren't going to like that. It's automatically they dismiss it. And I'm sure you can think back to something when you were a kid that you probably dismissed your father and overstepped your boundaries, you outshined him, or said something that upset him, and you can't take that back so
all the
easily.
time.
Yeah. And once that damage is done, it's obviously your father's going to forgive, but if it's in a corporate environment, not so much. If you make your boss feel insecure, or they say if you show your talents and outshine your boss, you're liable to make them feel insecure and even get jealous, in which they might start to hamper your progress or even want to get rid of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. If I said, half of the things that I really think or feel at work, I'd be probably long gone. But I know better than that, and it's for me, work serves a purpose, and I think that in this light, you need to consider your own sources of power, and I mean, we get power in a number of different places, and work is, for most people, a source of power. And why is that? Is that because we are getting something from the work that we do? If we're working for corporate America, and no matter where you're working, that employment is giving you money that you use to live on, and that is a source of power in your life, because you're using that using that money to get some of the things that you want out of life. So that's a single direct source of power that if you screw up, it could make your life very difficult. Now, with the Great Recession and so forth, I think that was a great lesson for me in regards to power, because my job was eliminated. I'd been with the company for 10 years, and they said, well, the economy's doing bad, we're letting people go, and I was let go. And it seemed so terrible at the time, but then I realized, what? The company treated me very fairly. They gave me a severance pay for my time. They gave me some outsourcing, some training, and helped me, work on my resume and get a professional version. They treated me very well. And I thought, okay, you know what? This isn't going to kill me. I need to earn money. And in fact, at that time of my life, my wife and I had been working for 2 years on this financial plan. And I don't know if it was 2 years, but we're about halfway through this financial plan to pay back just a boatload of debt that we had. And we were making traction, and we're about halfway through. And then I lose my job. I'm thinking, crap, what am I going to do? But I turned it around, and what I figured out is that if I had my severance, and if I got another job, I'd actually have 2 paychecks coming in. And I thought about how I could use that money to suit my purposes. And long story short, within 2 months, I was back at the same company, making more money, working from home, and
And getting a severance.
Yeah, I had to give up. A couple months of severance.
Gotcha.
I
thought you were still garnishing or still getting the severance on top of that.
That would have been great, and that was actually one of the reasons why I was like, dang, I actually was going through interview processes with several other places. So I could have held out and said, and gotten the dual severance, or gotten the dual income, but that was a decision that I had to make, and I had mouths to feed and a roof to go over my head, and I thought, you know what, I have an opportunity to kind of end this period of my life and have a secure job, and that's what I decided. That was what was good for me. But I guess we're getting way off track on serving your master, but I think that we all need to be masters, our own masters. And Robert Greene, when he talks about these laws, and a lot of these laws that are popular are based on action. And I think people are interested in what they can do to take action and make positive changes in their life. But it's not just a simple action that's going to change your life. It's really not only thinking about what actions to take, but it's also considering what actions not to take. And there's a strategy involved, and these laws do teach you about how to create a strategy that you apply throughout your life. So the idea is to not just read this book and be entertained by it, but to actually study it and interpret it, how it applies to your own life. Okay. And that's what we've been doing through these episodes. And what's amazing to me is it does change your perspective. And I view the world in a much different way than I ever have before because of Robert Greene's book. And I'm thankful for that. My eyes are open wide, and there's no turning back from that. It changes you in a permanent way.
Okay, on our list of the top 5 popular laws of power, the last one we had was, for number 5, is Law 15, which is crush your enemy totally.
Yes. And
I love that one because it's like something Conan would say.
Yeah, it is. And in the chapter, in that particular law, they do mention war a lot, and how important it is to crush your enemy, because if you show mercy, then you're basically giving them time to recoup and gain their strength back and use that against you.
Right. They equate it to a fire, saying that if you leave one ember burning or even smoldering, that eventually it will break out and become a fire, which is the same thing. You leave your enemy alive and he can come back, for revenge. It's the premise of almost every action movie that's in America, right? The bad guy is like, the good guy loses, the bad guy hurts him in some way, takes his family, hurts someone, takes something dear to him. And, he trains and then comes back and is victorious.
Yeah, and it all is what? It's driven by emotion through hatred or, or anger. And you do not want to leave that open. Now, so Tom, how do you think that how people can apply that in everyday life? I mean, isn't mercy and charity and helping people out, isn't that a good thing?
Well, I know on my commute, if you just run them into the ditch and make sure that they no, it's a good question because we're obviously not in a war, and crushing our enemy totally, it's hard. It's hard. I think this is a more difficult one to apply to modern life. I think it maybe for competitors, maybe for, Coke and Pepsi, and if they're going head to head, they have to play a ruthless game, but I'm not so sure.
What about, the way I think about the laws of power is it's not only just dealing with, it's not just telling you how to deal with other people. It's also how to deal with yourself. And what if you're your own worst enemy? I mean, I know, we're our own worst critics.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily give ourselves credit where credit is due because we think, oh, someone else is doing that better, or maybe, I mean, let's just face it, we all have our own demons. We all have our own challenges in life. And maybe that's what Greene is talking about.
I mean, that's the premise of our show: is you fall down, you stand up, you repeat. You're constantly going through a cycle of if you're trying to better yourself, of you slip up, you make a mistake, but instead of sitting there and dwelling on it, you get back up and try it again and try to find out what you did wrong. And I think life is a process of that. You get ahead a little bit, You fall back. You get a little bit ahead, you fall back. Sometimes you might fall way back, and other times you might jump far ahead. But it's just a matter of pushing on and never giving up.
Yeah, there was I believe he was a Greek god that Greene mentions, called Juno, and this was the two-faced god, and they had him over all of the doorways. And what they said is they said that one face was facing towards the future, to look to the future, and then the other face was looking to the past. And it was not to, keep kicking yourself about what you've done in the past, but it was to really learn from that and to not make mistakes. I mean, to recognize that we're all going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But it's not okay if we make the same mistakes over and over and over, and we're not learning from them. And I think that's
so that two-faced god, that Greek god you're talking about, it failed to have a third face for living in the present, right? Talking about living in the past, living in the future, but really the present moment is really where you should be.
Well,
where might not say should. I'm not trying to tell people that they have to live that way, but it is a way to. If you're dwelling too much about what's coming up, you get anxiety. If you look back too much at what you did wrong, then you start to get fear. So I think that living in the present moment is a good way to live.
Yeah, and if you think about it, and I'm certainly no expert on Greek gods, but if you really stop and think about it, we only have the moment. I mean, the past is just a memory, and the future is just a thought. They only exist in our heads. We only have what's here and right now, right in front of us, and it only lasts like a second, and then it's gone.
True, right? If you drive your car looking in the rear view mirror, right, you're gonna crash your car because you can don't have your eyes on the road.
Right. So you can't dwell on the past, but you could certainly learn from it and then apply it to the future. And for those of us who are interested in the laws of power and gaining more power, I think it's very important. And Greene mentions too how important it is that you know yourself and know what you want out of life. I hear this all the time. And how do you really know what you want until you get, sometimes you want something so much and you keep, heading for it, you keep working for it, and you finally get it. And then you're like, the heck did I do? I don't really want this. And a lot of people will stick with that, and they say, well, I worked so hard to get this degree, or, I passed this test, or I don't know, I did something to, work very hard to get me to this point. And now I find that I don't like it. What am I going, what am I going to do? Do something different? Like that's such a bad thing. But like I tell my kids, you don't really know what you want to be when you grow up. I'm almost 50 years old. I don't know what I want to be. you have to live and learn. And, sometimes you don't know what to do until you've actually done it. And you learn through doing. And you know what? If you've worked, it doesn't matter how hard you've worked. If you get there and you don't like what you see, or something's bothering you, want to do it differently, just step away. Step away and change. And that's also what we do here on the Swift Kick in the Ass. We believe that every day is a new opportunity to learn and to apply what we've learned from the past. So it's
absolutely,
you can take your life in any direction that you want, but we have to leverage that right here and right now. And what do we have, and where can we, how can we use that to our advantage to get us somewhere else, that we choose.
So, you think we covered our 5 most popular laws?
I believe we did. I don't know if anyone has any questions, or I see some people have joined, and just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us. This is our first Blab.
Yeah, we moved from Google Hangouts, where this is an experiment for us. But if they don't, we don't see anyone joining in. Let's invite them to join me. At least check us out at swiftkickinass.com. There you can find all our podcasts, but you can also get a 10-page action plan that that has been drafted up and with you in mind. And I think it will really help you. It's free. We ask for email. We don't send out other emails to bother you really much in the future. It's just to have interact with our listeners.
And we're certainly we're very much into the laws of power. We're working our way through. We're going to finish to the end.
Well, this is Tom. Thanks for listening. And
thanks.
We'll see you next time. Peace.